Thanks to my Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also get a deck review on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. It's the best way to support the channel.
Hello everyone. Commander is really a format about opinion, is it not? Like, competitive EDH aside, most people are compromising their power for suboptimal choices just because they like them. Like, is it actually the right decision to be running a Coom Warrior in your deck to amplify the number of hits your Keen Duelist can have by 1%? Almost certainly not, when using an Optimizer Brain. That card entering as a tapped land when you draw at most games is almost certainly worse than synergizing with a card in your deck that you may not even see every game, even if you have redundancy, like Parker Luck or Combustible Gearhulk or Sin Prodder. But Commander isn't a format where an Optimizer Brain is needed, as pressing advantages in this format is a lot more punished when you have 3 opponents who get a say in whether or not your spell resolves, instead of just 1. Often, the last one out of the gate is the one to take it home after everyone has spent all their resources denying the first couple win attempts. And that's true all the way up to the highest power level tables. And it can lead to a lot of upsets where the deck that isn't necessarily the strongest built at the table can still come out on top and win the game, just due to this crab bucket mentality when someone gets ahead and the game turns into a 3v1. I mean, to an extent. Like, I would expect a really well-tuned Rogsai CEDH deck to beat a bunch of decks that are like pre-2018 power level precons any day, even if they are 3v1 the entire game. Anyways, this is all to say that a deck can make a lot of subpar decisions in its construction for the rule of cool factor, and I would not consider those for a second mistakes. But there are plenty of real, actual mistakes that you can make in your decks that cause you to have less fun with them. And we'll get to those soon. But first, I gotta talk about a big mistake you're making, and that's not using code ELK at checkout or using my affiliate link down in the description when getting sleeves from Dragon Shield. It helps supports the channel and gives you a nice discount. Thanks Dragon Shield for sponsoring the channel. Now then, let's get into some of these mistakes and how they're different than preferences. The first and most prevalent of these I see on stream is running too few lands or incorrect lands for the situation. I made a whole video delving into the nuance of building a mana base, so I won't talk about all the fun tech that comes with including lands, or why I think lands are the best resource system in TCGs, which were covered there. But I will cover my general experience with playtesting viewer decks on stream. That being that lands are still very much overlooked as a part of Commander. I would argue that your typical Commander deck should be running 40 lands. Yes, including MDFCs and land cyclers. It's never been more easy to do this. Low land count can be correct for certain decks, like Luris, for instance. But overall, start at 40 and work down or up from there after playing with it some. Low land count is definitely something that crosses the line in terms of a preference versus mistake for me. Low land count lets you run more funny spells in your deck, sure, but it's not a good way to have a formula for a fun deck. I mean, if you can't cast those extra funny spells you get to run because you miss out on your mana, then what's the point of having them in the first place? Also, important note, but poor quality lands is also a factor here, not just the quantity. Like, the classic punching bag example here is, oh, it's a Commander deck, time to run Reliquary Tower. On top of being a card that can just sabotage your fixing for not much upside, most decks generally use discarding very well. I recently had a deck on stream with the 3-mana Emmet Selk that cared a lot about reanimation and discarding and self-mill, and they were running Reliquary Tower in a self-discard reanimator deck. I mean, just do the math here. You can see the issue. Besides bringing intentionality with your lands, I do think there's a lot to be said as well with a different aspect of your mana here, your curve. The number of decks I've seen running cards that look good for the list on the surface, but then turn out to be a total rotten hand garbage card because there's just not time to deploy them in the mana curve, is basically every list I see on stream. If you have a deck that always wants to go turn 1 Dork into turn 3 value play into 4-mana Commander during your games, will you have time to deploy that 2-drop that is rather middling? Like, yeah, rampant growth effects are great. They wouldn't be super played in the format if they weren't. But you need to really analyze their effectiveness in your curve versus a more on-curve option. Basically, analyze the regular flowchart of your deck's game plan. What does it go through? And see the points where your mana curve is skipped and go and reduce the cards of that mana value. This can also apply for cards that are too slow to deploy for tempo reasons. A card might have good quality, but it might be the wrong card for your deck. Make sure to check where everything falls in your curve and if it's worth it. Curve brings us to our next talking point as well, that being efficient removal. Generous Gift, Beast Within, Chaos Warp are all, in Casual Commander, totally reasonable cards. The modality of these options is what makes them very good for decks to run most of the time. However, once you start getting more and more and more 3-drop or higher removal spells, it becomes a lot harder to hold up that interaction while also deploying your game plan. 1 to 2 mana interaction is really the sweet spot. Yes, even for Casual Commander decks. Deploying your game plan while also being able to hold open interaction is often a reason a deck will work or fail. Also, it is indeed nice that a cheap removal spell helps you get around a pesky ward cost like Voha or Roaming Throne. Next up, playing unfun cards or cards that don't mesh well with your game plan just because it's correct to be doing so. This is something I've seen mostly with ramp. Like mentioned earlier, 2-drop ramp spells aren't for every deck, whether that be its curve or a lack of a giant top end to even be ramping into. But I've also seen it predominantly with Wraths. Think about all those deck building templates that tell you to run 2 to 3 Wraths. Or how many of you, when you open Moxfield and are brewing a new deck, just take your 2 favorite Wraths in the color you're in without much thought and just drop them in. Oop, I'm a red deck, time to put in Blasphemous Act. Oop, I'm in white, farewell and austere command and vanquish the horde time. What you might be neglecting, though, is that there are tons of synergistic Wrath options that can be one-sided, or maybe your deck just doesn't need this archetype of card at all. Take Adeline, for instance. What world, besides a game you already lose every time, do you not have a forerunning position in the tempo of the board? You are the Wrath target in this instance. Why run cards that are good against your average board state in the 99? They're dead draws, and casting them when you're behind only lengthens the game, while marginally increasing your win rate. If you're to run Rads in this instance still, I would go for something like Winds of Abandon that can be used in your deck's regular position of ahead on board. Okay, now it's time to talk about sabotaging your fun in a different way. Not with mistakes and being too weak, but with mistakes and being too strong. Think about this. You built a deck around a tutor engine like Spellseeker. You want to, in your deck, find the Spellseeker naturally, or Wizard Cycle for it, and then use Ephemerate to flicker the Spellseeker twice, which can get you Brainstorm, which can then set up your next tutor target, Bonfire of the Damned. If this is what you built your deck to do, or at least it's one of the lines you built in your silly Jeskai deck to take, why on God's green earth would you run Cyclonic Rift in that Micromancer package? It literally outshines Bonfire in so many ways, besides in a situation where you need to burn out an opponent. Simultaneously, Crackle with Power is another 2-drop finisher that can outshine the Bonfire. Basically, analyze your favorite cards in your deck and ask yourself 2 questions about them. Does the deck support this and turn it into a play pattern that can regularly close the game in a reasonable amount of time? And does anything in the deck outshine this gameplay pattern I want and therefore leaves it rotting in hand or makes it the most obvious tutor target? Those 2 questions will lead you to find out what to cut in order to kneecap your deck for the better and to help enable your jank game plans. Did this video reveal a kink in a deck that just felt off for no reason? Is there a mistake I didn't cover in this video that you think is a regular pitfall for Commander players? Let me know down in the comments below, and until next time, bye! Also, don't forget the fan art. Put the fan art in here now. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, thank you. Bye, 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 bye.